Hey guys, I'm Jeremy in VR. I'm a creator here inside Rec Room, and today I'm going to show you how to create your very own parkour. You might have seen some of my maps like Firefall Parkour, Christmas Workshop Parkour, Good Vibes Parkour, Skyfall Challenge, or maybe Skylands Parkour. Let me show you how to create your own in just a few simple steps. Before we get started, let's come up with the game plan so we know what we're going to do. When designing a parkour, the concept is really very simple. It's having players get from point A to point B with some type of challenge in the middle. The things I will show how to create today are the checkpoints, which will save a player's progress inside your map, as well as the kill zone, which will respawn the player to the correct checkpoint if they have fallen and not completed the challenge. First, we will create the checkpoint platform that we will use throughout the map. Next, I will spawn in the checkpoint, and then I will add the respawn point, which will connect automatically to the checkpoint. Once I've made these three things, I can select them and clone them to create each additional checkpoint throughout the map. Next, we will create the trigger zone, or the dead zone, which will detect players once they've fallen, and it will respawn them to their last checkpoint. And to finish it out, we just need to wire the trigger zone to a respawn chip. And that's it! Let's start building! Okay, first let's build the platform that will be used for our checkpoint. To do so, go to your watch, go to Backpack, and select Makerpen. Now on the Makerpen, go to Palette, then Shapes, and I'm going to select the cube. For swatches, mine is set to Ochre and Worn Wood. So let's go back to Tools, Create. Now make sure your snapping is set to Grid and you're working in world space. I also have mine set to Uniform Shapes. Alright, let's create our first cube. Next, I'm going to manipulate, click on the top box, and drag it down. Now, let's go to Scale, and let's scale up our platform a bit. Now that we have a platform, let's create some support so it's not floating in the air. To do so, let's go to Palette, Shapes, and scroll down to Cylinder. Now on one of the corners, let's create a cylinder, then go into Tools and Manipulate, click on it, and let's bring that support down. And now we can manipulate the cylinder and move it into place. And now let's go to Clone, and clicking on the red arrow, we can drag it to create the next support. Now let's go to Select, select the other support, and go back to Clone, and dragging on the blue arrow, we can create the final two supports. And now that we have our finished platform, let's make it a little more interesting so people know that it's a checkpoint. So for this example, I'm going to add a neon box. So to do that, I will go to Edit, and then go to Clone, and click on the top platform. From there, I'll click on the green arrow, and bring it up a bit, and then go to Scale, and I'll scale it in a bit. Then I can go to Recolor, Material, Neon. For the color, I will use Amber. And then I can manipulate it into place. Now that we have the platform, let's create the checkpoint. To do so, we'll go to Palette, then Search, and then we will type in checkpoint. And there it is. Then we'll select the checkpoint, and then we can create our checkpoint. Now going to Manipulate, let's stretch out this checkpoint so it covers the entire platform. And the final step is to create a respawn point. So let's go back to Palette and Search, respawn v1. And there, respawn point v1 legacy. That's the one we want. And let's spawn it in. Once we spawned in the respawn point, the checkpoint automatically found the closest respawn point and connected them together. One thing to pay attention to is on the respawn point, you'll see an arrow, and that's the direction that the player will be facing once they respawn to this point. My next checkpoint is going to be across the water, so I will go to rotate, and I will point the arrow in the correct direction. Now let's go to move, and we can move the respawn point into place. And we have our first checkpoint. So now, whenever a player enters this green zone, the game will remember that this is the checkpoint that they last passed, so whenever they are to be respawned, they will come back to this respawn point. Now that we've created our platform, our checkpoint, and our respawn point, let's select them all and clone them to create our next checkpoint. To do so, go to Tools, then Select, and then let's select our platform, our checkpoint, and our respawn point. Now, go to Clone, and dragging on the red arrow, we can create our next checkpoint. Let's go ahead and clone a third checkpoint by going to Clone and clicking on the red arrow. And now by selecting Move, we can move it into place. And just like that, we already have 3 checkpoints, and you can create as many checkpoints as you'd like. Now let's create the trigger zone, which will act as the dead zone, so if a player falls, they'll be respawned to their previous checkpoint. To do so, let's go to Palette, and then Search, and type in Trigger V1. There, Trigger Volume V1 Legacy, that's the one we want. So let's select it, go back to Tools, and make sure your snapping is on grid and you're working in world space. Now, we will create our trigger zone. Now, let's enlarge the trigger zone so it will cover the space that we want to act as the dead zone. So we will go to Manipulate, and dragging on the boxes, we will spread it out to cover the entire distance. Now let's select Move, and we can drag it down to make sure that it's not covering any of the checkpoints. Now let's add a respawn chip that we can wire to the trigger zone to tell the trigger zone what to do. So let's go to Palette and Search and type in respawn chip. Select it. Now find the edge of the trigger zone that has the 3 colored arrows and let's spawn in the respawn chip nearby. Now we will go to Tools, Connect, and then click on the red pin of the respawn chip and connect it to the red arrow on the trigger zone. And that's it. Now if I fall off this checkpoint, I should respawn right back here. And there you have it, all the pieces you need to create your very first parkour. Now just add a different challenge between the different checkpoints, and be creative with the challenges you come up with. It can be anything from jumping across different shapes, to moving platforms, to avoiding laser beams. This is your parkour, so have fun with it. Let's go, hardcore parkour. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing as it helps me out a lot. If there's anything you'd like to learn how to build in Rec Room, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. And remember, be kind to yourself and be kind to others.